Most confusion around income comes from people using the same word to describe very different things. Effort, assets, and systems often get grouped together, even though they behave nothing alike. Until these are clearly separated, people keep choosing paths that feel promising early but fail structurally over time. This matters because income does not fail randomly. It fails according to what it depends on. When you confuse categories, you misjudge risk, effort, and scalability. And that confusion quietly shapes years of decisions before results make the mistake obvious. Effort-based income is the simplest category. It produces results only while attention and energy are applied. When effort stops, income stops. There is nothing wrong with effort itself, but it has a hard ceiling built into its design. Jobs, freelancing, consulting, and most side hustles live here. They may vary in flexibility or pay, but they all share the same dependency. Your presence is required for income to continue. Efficiency can improve effort, but it cannot remove that dependency. This is why effort-based income often feels safe early on. The feedback is immediate. Work equals reward. But over time, the same structure becomes limiting because growth always demands more time, energy, or attention. Assets behave differently. An asset produces output because it exists, not because you are actively working on it. That output may be small or unstable at first, but the defining feature is independence. The asset continues operating even when effort is temporarily removed. Examples of assets include content libraries, software, intellectual property, or ownership stakes. They still require maintenance, but maintenance is not the same as constant production. The output is delayed, uneven, and often misunderstood by people accustomed to effort-based feedback. This delay is why many people abandon assets prematurely. They compare early asset output to effort income and conclude something is wrong. In reality, they are comparing two different time structures. Assets trade immediacy for independence, which only becomes visible later. Systems are a third category entirely. They are not effort, and they are not simply assets. A system is a structure that coordinates effort and assets, so output continues without constant decision-making or restarting. Where effort depends on presence and assets depend on existence, systems depend on design. They create predictable outcomes by connecting parts that reinforce each other. The individual components matter less than how they interact and how little intervention they require over time. This is where confusion deepens. People often call anything that earns without a boss a system, but many of those activities are just effort wearing looser constraints. They still collapse when attention shifts or energy drops. A useful test is dependency. Ask what must happen for income to continue. If the answer is daily action, constant monitoring, or repeated decision-making, effort is still the core engine. Systems reduce the number of decisions required for continuity to exist. Assets can exist without systems, but they are fragile when isolated. Effort can exist without systems, but it never scales peacefully. Systems are what stabilize assets and focus effort, so neither must carry the entire load alone. This distinction explains why some people own valuable assets but still feel trapped. Without systems, assets demand irregular attention and constant repair. The problem is not the asset itself, but the lack of structure surrounding it. It also explains why highly motivated people burn out. They rely on effort to compensate for missing systems. Over time, effort becomes a substitute for design, and exhaustion replaces progress as the dominant experience. Once you see these categories clearly, opportunity evaluation changes. Instead of asking how profitable something looks, you ask what category it belongs to. That single question reveals more about long-term outcomes than projected income ever could. Many opportunities fail not because they are bad, but because they are misclassified. Effort paths are mistaken for systems. Assets are treated like shortcuts, and systems are expected to behave like jobs during their earliest stages. This misalignment creates frustration. People feel misled when the real issue is expectation. Each category rewards patience, attention, and design differently. Ignoring those differences leads to constant switching instead of steady progress. Effort pays quickly but caps early. Assets pay slowly but endure. Systems pay unevenly at first but compound quietly. None of these are good or bad on their own. Problems arise only when they are confused or mismatched. This is why simply earning outside a job changes very little. Without understanding what you are building, independence remains fragile. The structure determines whether income survives interruptions, scales without stress, and supports long-term decision-making. If you have been following this series, this builds directly on the earlier idea of dependency. Effort, assets, and systems differ primarily in what they depend on. That dependency determines not just income, but lifestyle, stress, and optionality. Once dependency becomes the lens, clarity increases quickly. You stop asking whether something sounds flexible or passive. Instead, you ask what keeps it alive. The answer to that question predicts the experience far more accurately. This also explains why income growth alone rarely produces freedom. Growth inside the wrong category increases pressure. Growth inside the right structure increases resilience. The difference is invisible at first, but impossible to ignore later. Most people never slow down enough to make this distinction. They chase motion, variety, or excitement. But income clarity comes from classification, not activity. Seeing categories clearly prevents years of well-intentioned but misdirected effort. Once you understand this, decision-making becomes simpler. You eliminate options without emotional struggle, not because they are unattractive, but because they do not match the kind of structure you are intentionally building. This does not mean avoiding effort or assets. It means placing them inside systems where they no longer demand constant attention. Design replaces pressure, and continuity replaces motivation as the primary driver of progress. From here, the conversation becomes more precise. If effort, assets, and systems behave differently, how do you evaluate an opportunity before committing time to it? That question introduces the next layer of thinking, and it changes outcomes permanently.